Another beautiful day on this learning platform. Welcome! In this video, I will discuss the richest country in the world is now in ruins. Make sure to watch this video till the end because somewhere in between, I have a surprise for you that will change your game. And if you are new to this channel, make sure to subscribe. Let's get started. The country of Nauru is this. It is the third smallest country in the world after Monaco and Vatican City, with a surface area of just 8 square miles and fewer than 11,000 people. Due to the fact that this tiny island is the South Pacific, was the location of the worst economic decline ever. It more than makes up for its size in terms of the lessons it can teach us about the economy. We've talked a lot in the past about how natural resources can have a significant effect on the economies on the many nations. Consider the enormous oil wealth that many of the Persian Gulf nations enjoy. However, if natural resource wealth is not properly handled, it can occasionally have a negative long-term impact, to the point where some economists even refer to it as the natural resource curse. This tiny country of Pacific Islands is perhaps the finest example of what can go wrong. The nation experienced rags of affluence before regressing a state that was somehow worse than it had been before. It became wealthy, because it is one of the few occasions in history when we have been able to clearly examine the economic processes that drive these booms and busts on such a clear scale. The lesson of Nauru is one of all the economists can learn from. So how did Nauru come to be the wealthiest nation on earth? What errors did they commit that caused them to waste this wealth? And finally, how did this small nation truly become worse off over time? The island of Nauru was first made from and made known by Westerners in 1789 when a British ship passed by a region with a central plateau covered in greenery, surrounded by swaying palm trees and bordered by white sand beaches. The Brits gave the islands the name Pleasant Island because of its stunning scenery. The first outsiders arrived on Nauru, which is only a third the area of the Manhattan, a few decades later. At first, it was assumed that the island's only commodities were pigs and coconuts, prior to the discovery of high-grade phosphate rocks by a British geologist. Simply put, the nation didn't become oil-rich. Instead, the researchers discovered dry bird droppings and algae, which were somehow more valuable because they could be used primarily as fertilizers but also as livestock feed and cosmetics. When it was first found at the beginning of the 20th century, 80% of Pleasant Island was rich of this mineral, a previously known treasure of collected seabird excrement combined with marine microorganisms. Although it would sound repulsive, it was crucial for the feeding as increasing world population, making it very valuable. Mining rights were soon sold to Germany, which at that time had colonized Nauru. Shipping ports, processing plants, and supporting industries sprang up on a spit of land barely larger than Central Park over the ensuing years. Approximately 80 million metric tons this valuable substance were exported from the tiny island. At this point, Germany was occupied with the First World War, which provided Australia with an opportunity to seize Nauru for itself. By this time, the island had recently developed into an offshore mining location. Most phosphate was sold to farms in Australia, New Zealand, and Great Britain at subsidized prices or mates rates, as we say in Australia. Unfortunately, decades of mining had already significantly altered the natural environment of Nauru by this point. The top half of the island was back then called a gusty tract of land in Natural Geographic, very abruptly downward from Pleasant Isle. It only gets worse from here on out. Japan attacked the island during World War II, terrorizing Nauru with forced labor camps and mass drownings. Only 600 Nauruans remained alive at the conclusion of World War II. When the war was over and Japan submitted, the island was once more given to the Australians, who proceeded to exploit the island's foul treasures. Phosphate mining's activities hit new records high between 1945 to 1960. 1968. Nobody was forcing the Nauruans to mine the phosphate when they eventually gained their independence, but by that time their entire economy already dependent on exporting this natural resource. Independent Nauru had lost one-third of its islands to mining, and its people now resided nearby in a moonless wasteland that was now even more horrifyingly attractive. All economies are constrained by the production factors of land, labor, and money. Nauru's limitations were just particularly severe. A small portion of the people of this island was capable of nothing other than digging odorous rocks out of the ground. Due to their small size and remote location in the globe, many industries were simply unviable. The island had earned a lot of money from mining phosphorus, but at this time the majority of it had been claimed by the countries that had the island as a colony. Because they lacked the resources and expertise to establish any other industries, the number of phosphates specializes and was increased so that they could continue to milk the cow while she was still living. Actually, they had no other viable competing options. The Nauruans slightly demanded a piece of the action, even though it was already clear that the phosphate supply would run out within a lifespan or two. This marked the beginning of a period in Nauru's history, when some referred to it as the Pacific's richest small island. A little more than 10 years ago, after gaining freedom, Nauru was hailed as the world's richest nation overall in terms of per capita income. They had a $20,000 GNP per person in 1981, which equals to $88,000 in the present. In contrast, the US GDP per capita at that time was $14,000. The typical Nauruan was therefore twice as wealthy as the average American. GDP per capita is of course a far from ideal indicator of how well the typical citizen is doing. The easiest way to evaluate economies is still by GDP per capita because it provides us with at least a rough idea of living standards. Being politically independent and rich in phosphorus, Nauru was ultimately prospering on its own terms. Many individuals in Nauru took the advance given to retired sports stars to heart and retired at the height of their success. After all, they could readily rely on the government's provision of free healthcare and education, as well as landowners' royalties from phosphate revenue. Many residents had the option to choosing not to work. At the same moment, Nauru experienced all kinds of bizarre events. Despite the small size of the nation, sports vehicles were the accessory to have. The island's complete parameter can be driven around slowly in an hour, so it's hardly the best location to drag racing. Nauru thus receives a rating of 9 out of 10. Then there is business. The primary business of Nauru today is outsourcing refugee detention facilities. While this continues to be a valuable source of income for the nation, it does not advance the technological capabilities required to develop later sectors. Should this one source of income ever dry up, Nauru receives a 2 out of 10 because of this. As a result, Nauru receives an overall average score of 4, placing it at a bottom of a economic explained country leaderboard. If you want to share your opinion, comment down below. And if you have not yet already, please subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon for daily interesting and helpful contents. Thank you for watching. See you on the next one.